One AFC East team just shocked the rest of the NFL. Stay tuned to find out which team we graded the highest from the AFC East in the 2025 NFL Draft. Time to grade the AFC East. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills, the team that won the division last year. Ryan, what grade would you give the Buffalo Bills?
I didn't give out a ton of A's, Joe, but this one got an A from me. I love what the Buffalo Bills did. From getting Maxwell Hairston later in the first round, then I even thought he was going to end up going, to getting TJ Sanders in the second, who I think is a very undervalued defensive tackle in this class, to the late rounds. Like, the late rounds was what really sold on me, because I thought you got value throughout, but Dorian Strong, Chase Lunt, and a couple of those guys late on day 3, I think the Bills from start to finish had a lot of picks for one, but I think they found value in just about every spot that they selected.
Good teams know how to set themselves up to succeed against their biggest rivals. They needed to do more to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And the way that they're going to do it is what they saw the Eagles do: attack them downhill by going after and bolstering their defensive line. The TJ Sanders pick has upside. He is a very athletic and explosive player. Landon Jackson also tested really well, and he's just going to be potentially an anchor of a starter if he can crack that starting lineup because he shows reliability on film. And then Deion Walker is high upside. I think that, too, you have this ability to take swings when you have such a good culture and such a good roster. And they were able to do that with Chase Lunt and Caden Prather, who maybe don't start or do anything this year, but in the future could end up carving out roles for this team. It's kind of funny hearing Brandon Beane react to people complaining about how they didn't draft a receiver early, but Caden Prather could end up being a surprise name for this roster that ends up being a contributor. Let's move to the Miami Dolphins. Ryan, what grade would you give the Dolphins?
I ended up giving them a B because I did like a few of the players they drafted, but there was just a couple questionable decisions throughout. And the biggest question obviously was the trade up for Jonah Savainia, the offensive lineman out of Arizona. I love Jonah. I think he's a tremendous player. I think he is one of my favorite offensive line picks that I've ever seen the Miami Dolphins take, but you did mortgage a decent amount of draft capital to be able to get up and get a player like him, right? So I love Jonah. Kenneth Grant I thought was a rock solid pick early in the first round at number 13 overall. But after that, I was just kind of grasping for straws to find players that I was super excited about. Like Dante Trader out of Maryland, I think has some developmental upside. But like overall, I think that this draft was defined by 2 good picks, but one trade that maybe was a little bit lopsided on not in your favor. And I just think that the rest of the picks were just kind of okay. So I think B, they got quality, but I do question a few of the decisions throughout the draft.
I'm going to give them a B as well, and I think it goes in line with what you're talking about here. But to their defense, they didn't have a lot of early picks. They only had a first and second round pick at the end of this draft, and then a lot of fifth rounders. I think that their day 3 value of what they were able to accumulate after drafting Grant, who I'm a very big fan of, and I think could end up being one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And Savainia is another high floor lineman that we keep talking about for a team that just needed improvements along their O-line. But Jason Marshall could start in the slot for you. Jordan Phillips could be an important early down run defender. And I'm intrigued by the Ollie Gordon pick because it's not your typical Mike McDaniel running back. We're used to seeing these shifty, fast space killers. And I wonder if he's able to contribute a very unique role because he's this massive hulking presence. We'll see what ends up happening there with this Dolphins team that's trying to get back to the playoffs. Let's move to the New York Jets. First year under Aaron Glenn, they boosted their offensive line. What would you grade this draft?
I gave him B+, and it was on the cusp of B+, A-, because I think there was a lot of great in this draft. Obviously, you got Armin Membu early on in the draft to hopefully solidify your offensive line. I love the pick of Azariah Thomas there in the 3rd round as a tremendous value. But there were 2 picks in general, Joe, that left me just kind of questioning decisions and wanting a little bit more. And they were both pretty early picks. I mean, we're talking about Mason Taylor at 42. Look, don't dislike Mason Taylor as a football player. He just should not have been the 42nd overall player in this class. Like, that's what it comes down to for me. Like, I just think that was way too rich for him. And then the 4th round, you wanted to add a receiver. Cool. I think you should add a receiver. Justin Fields needs more weapons outside of Garrett Wilson. Your response was with the 110th overall selection, an early 4th round pick, Arian Smith, who brings speed out of Georgia. But Joe, There's also an important thing about playing receiver position. It's called catching the football, and Arian Smith kind of struggles with that attribute, right? So I think there was just a few just head scratchers, spots that I just didn't love, but I do like the acquisitions of Membu and Azariah Thomas, the team, which is why I still gave them a B+.
This was a B- for me. I thought that their first 3 picks were phenomenal, and then I think the wheels completely fell off after that. Now they only had 4 day 3 picks, and I feel like they kind of swung and missed on most of them. Membu, I'm very high on. I think that he plugs right into an offensive line, that there's a clear mentality, there's a clear vibe, which is just traits. It's flexibility, it's mobility, and I'm curious to see how they're going to try and attack opposing teams in space, having this many guys that are such easy movers. Mason Taylor is one of my favorite tight ends in this class, a little earlier than I would have liked to have taken him, but he's a quality tight end. After Azariah Thomas, who I think is the best press man corner who will play opposite of Sauce Gardner at a very high level, you just mentioned it. Arian Smith is a total swing and a miss. I don't have a lot of faith that a guy who can't catch the football is going to be very productive. Malachi Moore could contribute on this team, but I don't know what Francisco Maligo is going to do from the 5th round, or Tyler Barron. If those guys are just going to be rotational depth pieces, it doesn't feel like that there were a lot of starters pulled from this class. A lot of people love the Patriots draft class. Ryan, what would you grade the New England Patriots 2025 NFL draft class?
I ended up giving them a B+. This class grew on me the longer I kind of thought about it, and I evaluated it a little bit deeper, because initially I wasn't a huge fan of the class, because we talked about like the Will Campbell pick at 4, and if he ends up as a guard or versus a tackle, it could completely change your understanding of this draft. But overall, they drafted a good high floor player in the top 5, which, okay, we can start there. But moving down, I love the Travion Henderson pick. I think that Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia, was a tremendous value in his spot. And I think when you moved into day 3, there were a lot of tremendous values. So I feel like I'm almost talking myself into bumping it a little bit to an A-. I'll hold stand at B+, because, again, there are those questions of Will Campbell position flexibility, whether he's going to end up as a tackle or a guard. I think that's going to overall define this class. But I really do like the hold for New England. So B+, borderline A-. I'm okay with either grade, to be honest with you.
They were a B+ team for me, and I think it comes away with the fact that you came out of this draft with 2 starting offensive linemen, and you didn't have to be overly aggressive in trading up in any of these rounds. The Kyle Williams pick's a little wait and see, and I think that there were other options for them on the board. I believe Jalen Knoll was still on the board when they took Kyle Williams, which I'm a much bigger Jalen Knoll fan. But Jared Wilson, Will Campbell should start for you right away. Joshua Farmer can be an immediate starting defensive lineman for your team. Has a lot of upside, was super underrated on a really bad Florida State team. And Braden Swinson, you needed edge help. There's a shot that with his traits and his tools that he could crack that starting lineup in a couple of years. But my biggest negativity with this, and I know that people are going to say I'm being super weird about this, I'm a former college long snapper. I trained to after college, and I've been through all the camps. I've been through all the things, all the processes of trying to sign with an NFL team. I've been around NFL caliber guys that were long snappers and kickers throughout my entire college career, after my college career, all of those things. Drafting specialists is not a good move. You're a team that needed to address depth. You're a team that needed to just find bodies for this roster, turning over to a new regime. You don't even know if Julian Ashby or Andreas Bergales are going to make this roster. There is a longer track record and a higher success rate of guys being signed through tryouts, guys being signed as UDFAs that end up sticking around. I just find it very hard to believe that both of these guys end up making the team and are long-term franchise pieces. Don't waste picks on specialists, because there's value to be found elsewhere. It is a total swing and guess when you end up trying and going in that direction.
Man, I thought you were a specialist advocates. I thought you were the guy on this show that was going to stand up for specialists.
I'm not. I see too many long snappers that get drafted and then are cut either by after their first season or midway through their first season. These guys don't stick. And then what you see is a converted fullback or a converted linebacker like Luke Rhodes who end up sticking. Yeah. There are plenty of guys that I know across the board that I have been around, guys that I was at camps with after I graduated and I was done, that Tucker Addington's a really good example. I was at the same camp as him with Gary Zahner, and he snapped really well, and he keeps getting opportunities. The guys that are a couple years removed are usually the ones that end up landing. The guys that end up
raise your hands. Raise your hand, Joe.
What?
If you evaluated Luke Rhodes as a linebacker coming out of William & Mary, raise your hand. That's me. I'm just
I bet
showing
you
my
didn't
age
evaluate
there.
him as a long snapper.
I did not. I did not do that.
I'm going on a stupid tangent. Hit that like button and subscribe. Comment below what you think of our picks. We'll talk to you later.